I'm sorry, I had to cut the video short in the last message because my phone had died. But I'm back. And basically, yes, I want to elaborate more. It's very important that everybody learn history. But I feel, speaking from the descendants of so-called slaves, it's very important that we start to value education, start to value knowledge, start to see it as something that, we will always need. You never stop learning. Your quest for knowledge goes on and on as long as the days grow old. And back in slavery days, our ancestors used to get murdered for this. Like, I don't think people understand this enough. Like, and people say they do, but they don't understand. Like, the same things that we get now with the schools, and we get books, and we get this, our ancestors were literally lynched and murdered and beaten for learning how to spell things like cat, for learning how to read, for learning your ABCs. Our ancestors were murdered. Little boys beat for picking up a book, picking it up. That's how deep that should tell you that the powers that be, don't want us to learn. Because if we learned how to read, we can learn the ways back to who we are. See, Al-Kibilan, Timbuktu University, the first universities was in Africa. People travel miles and miles and miles across the seas just to come to our universities, just to learn from us, just to learn our philosophies, our principles, our culture. Even taking some of our deities and making them into their own deities and their own cultures, People came to us for miles and miles to learn from us because we were the wise ones. We were the first man and woman, and that was known in the first half of time, That was known that people came to us to bow to us because, we were such great merchants. We were such great travelers. We were such, great at so many different things. We brought so many different things to each culture that we visited. We've been to Asia. We were all around the world before slavery. Can you imagine the impact that we really made that, because of colonization? A lot of us will never, ever understand, literally how much we really contributed to this world. All they tell us is we're slaves, That's all they tell kids. You were slaves, and then it was over, and then there was civil rights movement. They don't break it down. They don't really tell the truth, They don't tell that, the Romans have books describing the Egyptians, describing how influential they were, how amazing they were, and describing them as black as night, by the way, for those out there who want to dispute whether or not Egyptians were black. Okay, education time. Within those centuries that the Egyptians ruled Egypt, you know how many people have crossed paths on the Egyptian borders? You know how many people have, captured? You know how many times Egypt was, what do they call it when, another person comes into your territory? You guys get what I'm saying. I can't think of it right now, but you know how many people have crossed paths Egypt? Cross past Egypt. You know how many rulers that have been in Egypt? Therefore, to base the color of the person's skin or the ethnic identity of the person based off of what you see in 2019 and so on and so forth, when the Egyptians ruled thousands of years prior. That's almost like insane to me that, we don't get the memo, Thousands of years ago, the people that's living in America looked completely different. Thousands of years ago, the people who lived in New Zealand and in Fiji, in Ireland, in Hawaii, they looked completely different. So the point that I'm making is that things change with evolution. Every great empire meets its fall. And when Egypt met its fall, that's when other countries came in and invaded it. because, they say, and I'm talking about, philosophy basis. They say that every great empire comes to an end. And usually when a great empire comes to an end, it's because it's been weakened inside. Not on the outside, but the system has been weakened on the inside, which allows for the invasion to happen. Just like with the Moorish empires, they say basically that the reason why they were invaded and that came to an end was because they had focused so much on, art and expression of that time, which, in Europe at that time, in Spain, it was, they considered when Moors ruled to be one of the most peaceful times in Europe, period. But they were weakened because they had focused so much money and put so much resources into science and culture and art that they did not put any into their militia. So when the invaders came, the rest, they were weakened. And so that's what I'm trying to say, is that don't base things off of what you see. Think about it. How many people have crossed Africa's path? Think about slavery. And then once they, taken all these slaves and, weakened, the continent by a long slot, because, so many of us have been taken. They started to come over there. That's when they sat around and had the Belgian Conference, and they set up and they divided Africa into bits and pieces. All of Europe did this. And then following that came the apartheid and stuff. So, when you go over there now, it looks completely different, I bet you, than it did, say, 200, 300 years ago. I bet you it does. Because there's so many demographics that have come in and come out. If we learned our knowledge and we opened a book, the information's right there. All the ancestors want us to do is connect. That's all. Open our minds and connect to the higher self and find out who we are. Once you close your eyes and you begin to listen, it will come to you. Ask the ancestors to come. Ask the ancestors for your support, for their support to guide you. That's what they're here to do. When they ascended into the heavens, into the stars, into the universe, they're looking down on us. They're watching us. They want us to fulfill our goals here on Earth. And one day, I want to get into that. The goals, meaning the North Node. If you're familiar with astrology, you're familiar with the North Node, hopefully, and that is your life purpose. And that's what we came here to do, is to fulfill our life's purpose, which is the reason why so many people, you find 50, 60, 70 years old and they're not happy because they didn't fulfill their North Node. They didn't fulfill their life purpose, what they were sitting here to do. They just settled in what was comfortable, which is their South Node. We, and I'm talking to all the masses now, we need to learn our South Node. We need to learn our birth chart. We need to learn astrology. Our DNA is in the Akashic records. Once we access that part of ourselves that we lost a long time ago, a lot of things will begin to make sense, and we will really start to see the matrix for what it is, because this is indeed a matrix. If you're familiar with Plato's cave, then you're familiar with exactly what I'm talking about. But the ancestors are here, and